Hello everyone, and welcome to the 25th rip-off episode of Analyzing Evil, featuring James Mangold from Indiana Jones and Star Wars. This is of course the director who shilled for Kathleen Kennedy and gave us Indiana Jones and the Diarrhea of Destiny, the most insulting piece depicting an iconic character since The Last Jedi. Of course, the defense for both was pretty similar, that they were challenging the aging characters or some bullshit like that. But given where we left off in both Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and Return of the Jedi, that's not a valid excuse. There was no precedent for making either weak and pathetic. Mangold and Rian Johnson came up with that all on their own. And in both versions, I have to ask, what the hell was the problem with creating the most impressionable and impressive legacy hero you could think of? If you were going to have the Nazis as the antagonists again, despite how irrelevant they are in the 60s, why for the love of fuck don't you emphasize Indy doing what he does best? Harrison Ford in 2008 had a strict diet of fish and didn't come across as a complete embarrassment, but he does in Diarrhea of Destiny, where he's intentionally thrown to the wayside in his own movie, because everyone pieced together very quickly that this was supposed to be the pilot episode for the bitch who accompanied him and became the bane of my existence. Now, a lot of this is Kathleen Kennedy's destructive touch, but James Mangold was with her all the way. He could have opted out when he saw that all of this was a betrayal of the character and the franchise, but he complied with her heinous actions. Just like J.J. Abrams, Mangold was a completely weak-willed backtracker who undid Kingdom of the Crystal Skull for no other reason than spite. I've got a record stating that when you backtrack, it shows a lack of commitment and strength to work with what's been done. Even George Lucas is guilty of it, and it's never the key to success, especially in the long term. The fact that you can't live with what you made previously and just go out of your way to undo it is pathetic. The better approach is to try and use what didn't work into something you can appreciate for existing. Not enough writers do this when they've got a failure on their hands, and James Mangold fell into this trap in the worst way possible. I'm also going to be real with you guys. I am not a fan of Logan. I saw the whole film beginning to end in theaters, and I thought it was boring and went on for too long. It must have been like 3 hours, that's what it felt like. And what do you know? Logan itself was retconned heavily when Deadpool and Wolverine came out, despite Deadpool insisting in that film's opening that they weren't going to ruin Logan to the fourth wall. That bullshit aside, I've grown to greatly dislike James Mangold for what he did to Indiana Jones. Whether pushed by Kathleen or not, he had the Nazis as the antagonists again, and as I've analysed in another video, I don't think he actually understood what the Nazis were and what they specifically believed in. Because the film in general is written with a modern lens of Donald Trump supporters being the same as the Nazis, which is as retarded as it sounds, but it's a misconception that people do absolutely have. Even if these are technically neo-Nazis, James Mangold did no research on how neo-Nazis operate, both in the 60s and today. Diarrhea of Destiny was so terrible that it inspired me to make my own Indiana Jones 5, to prove I could do better. Because the Diarrhea of Destiny so desperately wants to be set in the 30s or 40s without actually having the ability to do so. So they basically took the flimsy factoid of how a bunch of ex-Nazis helped NASA or the Soviets with their space program and made the rest up as they went along. The Diarrhea of Destiny was made with countless, well technically there was this excuses. The conflict with the Soviets and the Crystal Skull might have been completely made up, but at least it had a believable Cold War aesthetic to it, in how 1950s America was portrayed. That was really well done. However, Diarrhea of Destiny doesn't have this. It just has backdrop elements of the whole moon landing event without having actual relevance to the story. It was just poorly placed together excuses based on a filthy casual perception of what Indiana Jones is. He fights Nazis in the 2 most popular films, so let's make them the bad guys again. Despite the fact we're in the 60s now, late 1960s actually, people hated Crystal Skull, so let's just kill Mutt off screen and replace him with Indy's bitch of a goddaughter. Even small things, like how they completely capped Antonio Banderas' character, who would have made a far better sidekick anyways, and I'm actually incorporating him in my rewrite. I thought he was wasted potential. Then there's the insulting ending, which James Mangold has confirmed originally entailed Indiana Jones preventing Jurgen Voller from killing Silly Mustache Man, which out of context sounds so dumb. You also gotta note Mangold's filthy casual ignorance on how the surname Voller was already taken in 2009 with Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings. This is kinda strange too, because Mangold knew about the X-Men Origins Wolverine game, but Staff of Kings, just didn't know anything about it, which I thought was embarrassing if anything. So now we've got two main antagonists called Voller, both of which have zero relation to each other. Now, the failure of Indiana Jones 5 aside, we've also been privy to more recent news that James Mangold is directing a Dawn of the Jedi movie, and publicly stated that he doesn't want to be handcuffed to law, just like the Kenobi writers, and making that notion that you can't please everyone. Ugh. What little interest I had in James Mangold's film was completely killed off by that statement. Who's willing to bet that he'll just plagiarize the attempt of a multimedia project also called Dawn of the Jedi? And as well as that, succumb to Kathleen Kennedy's shitty ideas. So I'm sorry, I cannot respect James Mangold whatsoever. Because the thing is, I didn't like Logan anyways. James Mangold, if I had to describe it, is probably a yes-man filthy casual who is completely spineless in the face of challenging higher powers, especially when he needs to. I think the fact that he doesn't understand or respect the source material of any kind is stupid. Logan, if anything, was just a fluke, and his other film related to a larger franchise has been one giant bomb. Diarrhea of Destiny sucked. Everything James Mangold has said in general does come across as soulless PR talk, and I imagine he was instructed to say such things by Disney, but regardless, James Mangold has to take accountability. Because he made the excuse that fans just don't want to accept Indy as an old-ass man who is 80 years old. Which is the sort of excuse Last of Us Part 2 fans make in defense of Joel's death. That it's just because people wanted to see more of Joel, and there's no deeper reason for it whatsoever. James Mangold I can't help but see as a complete hack when it comes to Indiana Jones, and his resume may be better outside of that, but in the end, James Mangold is an example of what happens when you accept a job from the wrong person, and you don't have good reasoning for what you're doing whatsoever. Indiana Jones 5 was broken from the start, and James Mangold is a lesser, but still notable, evil. Thank you for listening to this episode of Analyzing Evil. What do you think of James Mangold? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And JJ plagiarisms. And until next time, what are stories but mystery boxes?
Under the mountain, a golden fountain. Were you praying at the Larish shrine? But oh,